I know it's Saturday, it's a beautiful day outside, and people ask why'd you have it on a Saturday. I figured it'd be something different to get the public here, and obviously I don't see too many people from the public other than department heads. So like I says, it's first come, first serve as far as sign in, and our first department today will be Mr. Stan DeStott in engineering.
Yeah, I'm Stan DeStott, and this is my office manager, Kathy. Basically, our budget is real similar to what it was last year. There's a minor reduction in the part-time dollar amount and in the communication and transportation, but other than that, it's about the same. Any questions?
I have questions. Who's your assistant?
Pardon?
Who is your assistant, Stan?
Mark Gordish.
And who falls in line after Mark?
From an engineering standpoint, Jonathan Parker.
Well, I'm just going to say this. I know we're here for budget hearings, but, you know, I do everything I can to try to get things completed in my district. And this year, I'm very upset with the way things were being handled. It was really, really slow in terms of getting things addressed and getting things completed. And it's just, I don't know what Robinson is doing with their projects, but, you know, I looked at the list that Mark gave me, 50% things sitting on the shelf from 2006. Unbelievable. They need to step it up, Stan. They really do.
Yeah, Robinson had a change of project managers for the district. Pete Faber-Bach left. That was part of the problem. We've been stressed in the engineering department because we have 5 federal projects going simultaneously, which was taking up a lot of time, tying us up. We're the only community that has ever gotten 5 federal projects in a single construction season. You know, we had $20-some million worth of federal money getting spent in the city of Hammond. And I know a lot of the district councilmen didn't have an awful lot of money to work with this year. Most of the districts only have a single street project going, and they have the sidewalk repairs and some overlays.
That's correct, but in terms of Kenwood from Calumet to Columbia, initially it was supposed to be a GO project for this year. And for whatever reason, we come to find out that it's not even completely designed.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't
it's
designed.
very upsetting. So if you could draft a letter to Robinson and tell them that, you know, they need to get those, especially those projects from 2006, there's no reason for them not to be completely
Yeah,
designed.
some of their projects were sitting on the shelf and they didn't complete them. Yeah, we lit a fire under them and told them, hey, you need to have all your stuff ready to go so that when a councilman decides that he wants to build a street, that the plans are ready to build.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to wait 3 or 4 months for that for them, and then they go back and forth in terms of getting it addressed. It's ridiculous. But that's basically all I have to say in regards to that.
Mr. Chairman? Stan, what are the 5 federal projects that are going on now? What streets are they?
Indianapolis Boulevard with Federal Highway and State Highway from 165th to 169th. We have 169th Street from Southeastern all the way to Harrison. We have Columbia Avenue and a new culvert structure over the Grand Cal River from Chicago Avenue to Michigan Avenue. And we have 2 bike trail projects, the one up at Wolf Lake, which will be starting shortly, and we have the Nipsco Bike Trail project through North Hammond, which is currently under construction. All those projects qualified for 80% federal money. They were a real bargain for the city, and if you look at the dollar amounts of them, like 169th Street's like $9.5 million, Columbia Avenue is about $5 million, Indianapolis Boulevard, the local match was actually split by the state and the city, and the project's valued at about $4.5 million. This was a lot of work and a lot of effort. The federal highway project's a lot more complicated. There's a lot of paperwork. you know, they're just Mark and me that are actually qualified to follow through on that stuff. Jonathan, he's still learning, and we got him working on sidewalks most of the time.
Do we have any Hammond projects with our own gaming money that's in effect right now, or is all of this just federal projects?
No, we have some local projects going. We have projects going in the districts. There's California Avenue in the 6th district, which has had a little problem, but I think we got all that worked out. There's Amy Court up in the 1st district.
Who's pass these on California? Who's on Amy?
Amy is Rex Construction.
Okay, and what else we have?
We got Forestdale in the 5th.
Yeah, Forestdale in the 5th, and that's United
Oh, one at a time,
Consulting.
please.
And who's the contractor on that? Walsh and Kelly?
Yes.
In the
think
5th
so.
is Forestdale Walsh.
Yeah, we have River Drive and Northcott Lighting going on. That's the 5th district, right?
Right.
Who's the contractor there?
I don't remember right offhand.
It's Walsh and Kelly.
Yeah, Walsh and Kelly's the general, and the underground is the one that we were having trouble with. They were having trouble getting the water to pass the bacteria test. They finally got it straightened out.
Is that it?
No, there's a couple more.
Well, let one person at a time, please.
Yeah, I didn't bring my list with me because there's, I didn't think I'd get asked this question.
District council about, you can do
No.
that.
Yeah, Willard?
Willard is in my district.
Yeah.
I also like to have the lights done on Maywood this year. Seeing that we can't get that other project done in Carr, and have that bidded next year so we can get it started.
Yeah, we could do lighting projects over the winter. In fact, I was talking to the 4th District Councilman just the other day. We're gonna do 5 streets with lighting. We're gonna put them out to bid here shortly and let them work on them over the winter. I think the 2nd District doesn't have any major projects other than the Columbia Avenue Federal project, but you do have some overlays and some sidewalk repairs going on right now.
Dan, when's the 169th supposed to be completed?
You know what, let's keep this at a budget. We're getting like out of whack here.
I had that question asked me by a few people who live there
Yeah.
in businesses.
I think that's something that could be asked,
I can ask later, that's fine.
I can answer it real quick.
Okay.
From Calumet to Harrison will definitely be completed this year. From Calumet to Southeastern will probably not be totally completed, but it'll be buttoned up and open to traffic over the winter. There was some water main, there was a coordination issue in how to construct the water main and the sewer without interfering with each other, and it slowed the start of the project up. And it's that's the biggest project we got going this year, $9.5 million job.
Thank you, sorry to bring that up.
Okay, any other questions in regard to the budget? All right, Stan, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next department head will be Sharon Daniels.
Is there a page number on the budget for this one?
That would be, 7. Sharon,
Yes.
thanks for being so professional when I do speak with you. I appreciate that. I guess my question would be, who's the college bound coordinator?
Leanne Munoz?
Page 7.
It is page 7. Where are you?
She's not human. Are you human relations?
Hello, you've been on
But it doesn't list her title here. Oh, yes, it does.
Any questions for Sharon?
Yes. Excuse me one moment. I was noticing under services and charges, it says other services and charges. For that particular line, there's an increase from last year up to $13,600.
Correct.
Can you explain that, please?
That is for a fair housing investigator for the housing complaints and a financial consultant as it relates to the HUD funds that come into the department, to make sure the reports are done the way HUD needs them done.
All righty, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I guess my question would be, how many complaints are filed annually, estimate?
I believe for this year's report that was submitted to HUD, there were 4 or 5.
Any other questions for Sharon? All right, Sharon, thank you.
Thank you.
Next department head will be Mr. Phil Talon, Planning and Development.
Good morning, Councilman.
Good morning.
Any questions for Mr. Talon?
What page is he on?
1339, it would be,
Maybe this would go easier if we just asked you to summarize the differences between last year and this year.
Sure.
39?
Really, the big difference between last year's budget and this year's budget, technically, the planning development has cut back on our budget. It's lower than last year. However, the city has asked us to take on city planning, which is brand new for us. We've never had the planner budget and redevelopment. So with that addition, which I think is approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of about $150,000, it's higher than it was from last year, but overall, without taking on planning, it's actually a little less than last year. And part of the reason is we're foreseeing that we're not going to hire for a position once at the end of this year one of our people leave. We're just going to leave that position open or maybe get rid of the position altogether.
Is that a position in planning or just in somewhere else?
That's in redevelopment.
what position is that?
That would be Phil Vanessa's position. He is our, I'm trying to think of his exact, redevelopment coordinator is his title. But Phil oversees quite a few things that we're actually going to have to, we've already talked to a lot of our staff about how we're going to take his responsibilities and divvy them up. Everybody understands that with the budget issues the way they are, that we have no choice. We have to do that, so.
Can you just give me a brief synoptic view of what's going on with Woodmar quickly?
Sure, Monday, actually, there's a mediation. So the owner of Woodmar was sued by his subcontractors, and therefore, because he was sued and we had an agreement with him when he was originally starting the project, we had to in turn sue him as well. So on Monday, there's a mediation, and hopefully some good will come from that, and we'll all find common ground and move on.
Who's the lawsuit on?
It's towards George Markopoulos at Woodmar.
That project's been idle for a long time.
I believe he owes some contractors some money, but I don't know specifically how much or who.
Any other questions for Phil pertaining to the budget? All right, Phil, thank you.
Thank you.
Susan from the clerk's office.
Good morning.
Morning. Just want to tell us what you're doing this year as opposed to last year?
The clerk submitted the same budget that we had as last year with just a 1% increase in salaries. The line item's the same.
Susan, I do have a question. One item stuck out to me that you saved $10,000 in an office supply category from last year. I think that's great.
Oh,
And how did you accomplish that?
with new technology, being able to not purchase as much as in stamps by paper products, we've now moved into doing postcards instead of envelopes and letters, doing different type of printing in-house instead of sending it out, and so it kind of balances out.
Okay, thank you.
Review for me, how many full-time employees, how many part-time employees?
Mark, could you speak in the mic?
I'm sorry.
I think his question was, how many part-time and how many full-time?
Including myself as full-time would be 10 full-time employees. The clerk would be an additional, would be 11 in the office. Part-time employees, it varies. We bring a lot of college students in. They work sometimes a couple hours a day. Sometimes they'll work 4 days a week. And that kind of varies with schedules.
Any other questions? All right, Susan, thank you. Next department head, Mr. Ron Novak, Environmental Management.
Ron, you want to just summarize any differences between last year and this year?
No, essentially the same. Many of the activities just carry over from year to year.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Novak? Okay, Mr. Novak, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pat Moore, Park Department.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning, Pat. I noticed that your budget has gone down.
Yes, we'll be part of the Department of the Public Works now.
Okay, okay. I think everybody's heard about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Pat, how do we do on the Festival of the Lakes for this year, or the bills coming in, or
I'll still be running that.
what's that?
I'm still going to be running that. It's all part of the Public Works, but nothing's going to change as far as all the responsibilities that we have out there.
Any dollar amount how the festival did?
No, I don't have that.
You don't have that yet?
No.
By consolidating, Pat, how would that affect you?
Well, probably make my life a lot easier. A lot of the maintenance guys are going to wind up under direction of somebody else.
But you'll still be responsible for the park.
Correct.
Sent the letter over to your office in regards to Memorial. I'm trying to figure out exactly who owns it, so.
Pastor Polk with New Hope Church owns that. We now lease it back from him. The school city of Hammond actually owned that at one point, and they turned around and, oh yeah, they own that property. The Park Department, City of Hammond has never owned that. And then the school city somehow sold it, unbeknownst to anybody within the City of Hammond. And
That's when the lawsuit should have been filed, because you know what, we did a lot of renovation over there. And I'm very bitter about that process.
Well, we now lease it from the church.
Pat, will you continue to have a park board?
Yes.
And will you continue to have the capacity to go after bonds? do bonds?
Yes.
And your park's role primarily is facilities now? Is it buildings? Is that
with me.
Well, we have a recreation program, we have swimming pool programs, we have a Gene Shepherd, we have a civic center, we have a bunch of special events that I'll be running. So I'm fine with it, you know.
You'll be busy. Okay.
Pat, I was working with Donna recently, Donna Muda, and in discussing some things, there's a garbage truck that the Parks has that is, I thought on 2 levels it saves the city money, and at 1 level it's a lot cheaper than the full-blown garbage truck, and I understand you don't need a CDL to drive it, so I think that saves on A, running around looking for someone with a CDL, and B, I understand it's a lot cheaper than our big monster trucks that collect the garbage in the alleys. I think it's a good deal.
I think it's probably a good deal for the park department. I don't think it's probably going to be a good deal for the people that are going to haul the garbage out of your alleys every day. You do want to get as large a truck as you possibly could.
Yeah.
That way you eliminate as many trips as you're going to make to the dump. I mean, it was a good deal for the park department. Number 1, it's cheaper. Number 2, you don't have to have a CDL to drive it, which in the park department, there's maybe 1 person with a CDL license.
Yeah.
So it worked out good for the park department. I don't think it would work out good for the street sanitation department. I don't think that would work very well at all. I mean, because you're going to make more trips to the dump.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the day-to-day operation of it, but I thought in terms of cost savings, it was good for the city.
It was good for us to do, yes.
So
out here.
Pat, I guess you're saying that your responsibilities are going to be less in terms of addressing the other areas of the park, but you'll still be over the parks, but you won't have as much responsibility as previous?
I won't have as large a staff as what I used to have. Correct. They'll still be there. I mean, if there's a problem that you need to address, we'll be able to take care of it, but it's just going to be under somebody else's direction, you know.
You have the same amount of people in the office that you have now, is that what you're saying?
Excuse me?
The same amount of people that's in your office now will still stay there?
Correct. Okay, we done?
You got $45,000 for overtime?
Correct.
Are you used for the staff, or do you bring people on board?
No, that's for staff.
Do you have a safety person for the park department? Or?
No.
The other day I was...
Basically, the superintendent of the parks is responsible for the safety of the...
What's the policy for guys riding on the outside of the garbage trucks? Are they allowed to do that, or are they supposed to be in the cab when the truck's in motion?
Yeah, they should probably be in the cab, but there's probably not a person who doesn't work on any kind of garbage truck who occasionally is not riding on the back of that. It's easier for them to if they just, we'll say you're driving down a block and you go to the end of the block, well, they don't want to be hopping in and out of that cab 5 times while they run through that block, so they just jump on the back.
The only reason why
They
I
probably
asked
shouldn't do it.
is
You're
I
probably
was
right.
downtown this past week.
My God.
And the park guys came, and he's hanging on the outside on the driver's side. I mean,
Yep.
I can understand it's safe and it's unsafe, but if he was to get hurt or whatever, are we liable for that? Is he violating a safety rule?
He
You
is.
follow me?
That is a violation, there's no doubt.
Yeah, so I'm just-
They all do it. I agree.
You guys need to address that then, but
I agree with that. He can walk down the street rather than ride down the street. I totally agree with that. I've seen it before, right. I can't debate you on that one, Bob, you know.
I'm just bringing it
All right.
to your attention, and then that's, you know,
That's fair.
what you said is true too. I mean, you know.
That's fair.
Any other questions for the park department, Mr. Moore? All right, Pat, thank you.
Thank you.
Next department head will be Ms. Chris Cantar.
Good morning.
Morning.
We don't have much to say, except that since this department I've been involved in 9 years, we've shrunk from 3 full-time insurance receiving attorneys to 1 single attorney.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
We've shrunk from 3 insurance position, full-time position attorneys to 1. Currently, there's 1.
So you have corporation counsel, administrative secretary, and legal secretary.
That's it. That's the entire department.
And everybody's going to reflect a 1% raise?
That is correct.
Is the corporation counsel allowed to do any other outside work?
I am the corporation counsel, and I spend most of my time in City Hall.
But are you allowed to do any outside legal work?
There is no prohibition in the statute or the ordinance for that, but with just me, there's not a lot of time for anything either.
And the salary that's published here is $59,040, is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
That's what we're looking at here.
That's not the copy I received.
The one that we had, page 17.
Bobby still here?
Maybe looking at that.
Oh, so you're going to 99,700.
That is correct.
Okay, that's more than a 1% raise.
Well, it's a merger of positions.
But still, it's more than a 1% raise. I mean, it may be a merger of positions, but you can still only work 40 hours a week.
Correct, but it's a merger of positions. It's a responsibility of city attorney, corporation counsel, and there used to be an assistant city attorney.
But
No.
still, as far as responsibility goes, I mean, the corporation counsel was only 59,000 last year. And to go $40,000 roughly, just because of responsibility, I don't think that warrants that. It probably should stay at the 59,000. And then you have, how much money are you going to have in your professional services? You still going to have $90,000 in professional services?
No.
How much is that going to be?
Whatever it says it's going to be, but it's not going to be that
You
amount.
don't have a copy of your budget?
I don't have it with me. It's only we have 3 people in our department. Our entire, the budget is smaller than the uniform allowance for the police
What
department.
page are we looking at?
$40,000, same as
Mr. O'Pinker
last
for,
year.
No, it's
law
not.
department.
According,
Councilman Markovich,
Sorry, what?
page 6.
Councilman Markovich, President Opinker, you guys have had the budget for 6 weeks. And in that budget, you'll notice that the professional services in the law department has decreased by over half, from 90,000 to 45,000.
Correct.
That's correct. And you guys understand, because you've been doing it long enough, that professional services pays for outside attorneys. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so if we've decreased the use of outside attorneys by 45,000 because we've hired a corporation counsel that is now going to personally do the litigation, then it stands to reason that there's no extra spending in this department. It's the same. In addition, Councilman Markovich, you're incorrect that it's a $40,000 raise. In 2013, corporation counsel currently makes a salary that reflects a 1% raise in the budget that you're looking at.
2013 is $59,040.
No, it's not, Councilman Markovich.
Bob, this is the figures that was given to me. This is the 2013.
Okay, and I'm telling you that's not the case, Councilman Markovich.
So what is it
the salary that you're looking at for the 2014 corporation counsel is reflective of a 1% raise. If you look at my cover sheet that came with the budget, it specifically states that every single employee that you are looking at has a 1% raise submitted, with the exception of those employees whose salaries is governed by state statutes such as probation officers in the judge's office. That is without exception. That's why I worded it that way in my cover sheet to you. That includes corporation counsel, it includes elected officials, it includes everybody with the exception of state statute governed salaried employees. Does that clarify things?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Markovich.
Sorry.
I'm looking at 12-49, ordinance number 9177 that says the Law Department Corporation Counsel for 2013 is $59,040. The new one is saying $99,693, so let's call it $40,000 increase. That's more than a 1%. Nobody can justify additional responsibilities for $40,000. You're still going to work 40 hours a week. regardless. And we were told 2 years ago, when the city attorney was put on contract, that we were going to save money because we weren't going to pay health benefits, that they were going to use the spouse's health benefits. So we were going to save money. But then they were hired as an outside contractor, as a consultant, for $125 an hour for $99,000 a year, which only gave us 700 hours approximately of work. Okay? Then a raise was given from $125 to $150 with a contract of $99,000. That lowered it to 600 hours a year of work. Okay? So for her to say that she was here for 40 hours, she was going to work full time, she wasn't doing that the last 2 or 3 years whenever that consulting contract went into effect. It used to be, and if it's still not by state statute, that our city attorney is not allowed to have any outside work. Now, were you working for any other outside firms or doing any outside work for the last 2 or 3 years?
I was a contract employee, and my bills were submitted to the council for approval and were approved. I was not an employee. I am now an employee. There's been a change in the organization of the department. There is only one attorney now. We used to have 3. There used to be 3 attorneys that received benefits. Now there is only 1, and I'm only on the single program.
Who was the 3 attorneys that received benefits?
Alan Faulkner, William Joseph O'Connor, and myself. This is 9
You weren't receiving benefits the last 2 years.
Not the last 2 years, but previously the law department was 3 people. Now we've consolidated and reduced down to 1. Our entire budget is less than the uniform allowance of the police department. And as much as I love to see the police officers with their uniforms, I would say the law department is a little bit more important than uniforms.
We're not talking about the police.
Yes, we are. We're talking what we
all we're
get for
talking
the job.
about
The
here,
city of Hammond
we're
has-
being told that we're going to get a 1% raise, and somebody's going to get a $40,000 raise.
The law
you know?
department is one of the most essential offices. I service every single department in the city. We go after nuisance bars, draft ordinances, enforce court actions, Board of Works actions, and if the council doesn't want to have a law department, that's fine. But we're not going to sit here and nickel and dime a department that's been consolidated and made the most efficient in the city. There are 3 people in the entire department. I don't think you can find another department that does as much as the law department with 3 people.
You know, there's nobody saying here that the law department's not essential, because by state statute, it's required by law to
Right.
have a law department with a corporation council.
Right, and our insurance costs are very low.
Don't sit here and say, and tell all the employees that everybody's getting a 1% raise, and then somebody's going to get almost a 45% raise.
Our insurance costs are low. There's a low cost to operate. There is no vehicles. There is no maintenance
I'm not
costs.
debating that, but we're talking salary.
Right, but I didn't hear you talk salaries on any of the other departments.
He said we don't have time.
Well, then we don't have time for
We're
this.
trying to expedite it, okay?
It's one or the
Nobody
other.
else had a
Mr.
45%
President.
raise.
No, I think
President.
the issue is this is a department headed by a female, and that's always rubbed you, Bob, for the
No,
last
don't
9
even
years.
go
Okay,
there.
order,
Don't even go
order,
there. Don't
order.
even go
I
there.
Order.
received
Mr.
special
President.
harassment.
Order,
Don't
Councilman
even go
Markovich.
there. You know what? Don't even go
No,
there.
I will
Mr.
go
President.
there.
Nothing to do with it.
Yes,
Don't
it
even
does.
Let's go,
there.
let's cool
Mr.
it.
President.
All
Don't
right?
even go there.
I have received special harassment and treatment from Bob Markovich since I started here 9 years ago. And it is because I am a female and a department head and an educated professional. Other departments, which are 15 times
You know
the
what?
size
You
of
ought
our
to
department.
shut her.
Order,
Shut
order.
up. She's a female.
Order.
Do with the budget.
I'm uppity.
Okay. This case has been
Bob don't
debated
like uppity
enough.
women.
Ms. Cantor, you could have a seat. Councilman Markovich, I've heard enough from you. When it comes up for a vote, you could vote against the ordinance or for the budget for that department. We're moving on. Councilman Higgs.
I had a question. I'm kind of like far-fetched. I mean, everybody needs to be professional, and no one needs to be mistreated in this process. It's just ridiculous. And
Thank you, Councilman Higgs.
my question was, I understand that there's a difference in the salaries. I mean, if you can step to the mic for me, please, Ms. Cantor, if you can step up, please. My question is what are the additional responsibilities that's going to be put on you since there are 2 less attorneys in the law department?
Everything that other people did, I must now do. I'm at all the Board of Works meetings, as you know, because you attend. Councilman Markovich doesn't attend Board of Works meetings, but if he did, he would see that I'm at everyone. I go to every liquor board hearing. Council Markovich does not attend liquor board hearings, but if he did, he would see that I was there. I attend every council meeting. I write most of the ordinances, at least the ones that pass. Let's see, what else do I do? I prosecute all the violations of code. Every time you have a dead tree that you want removed, or a house that needs to be boarded up or taken on, I take care of that. But, you know, because I'm a girl and I'm speaking out of turn, he wants to shut me up.
Come on now, let's keep it this.
Okay, the question's been answered. Okay, Chris, you could have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Our next department head will be Mr. Johnny Perez, Public Works.
Do your job. I have nothing to do with her. She's gonna bring in that. That's right.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Lord. This is becoming interesting.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Johnny Perez?
Mr. Perez, it's more like just requesting more attention as it relates to my district, because I don't feel as though, as councilman, I know I have a responsibility to make sure my constituents are happy in terms of addressing their needs, but I shouldn't have to spend 4 or 5 days a week going up and down alleys making sure things are picked up. That's the only thing I have to say.
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Bananas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As we have all heard, there are several departments that are going to be merged into the Public Works Department. Would you give us a brief summary of what's going on with that and how it will be able to more efficiently handle the needs of Councilman Higgs in the 3rd District?
Each district will have their own supervisor and foreman and have a group only for that district. Therefore, we can get to those needs a lot quicker.
So it'll be like a mini department for each district?
Yes.
Okay.
And our goal is to have eventually a sweeper for each area, so your sweepings will get it done. But yeah, there will be a foreman and a supervisor for each district.
Okay. Okay.
And I did get the notice, and I don't know if each district councilman got theirs as to selecting those individuals they're interested in, I guess. And then I guess the final determination is going to be made by the mayor, but it's interesting. I hope it's for the better of the city. That's all I can say in regards to that. We'll see. Because I'm spending a lot of time looking at stuff, and it's quite time consuming.
Any other questions for Johnny or Rhonda?
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Bananas.
I just do want to say, it's not in relation to the budget, but I've talked to several people in the departments, and they are very excited about this change. They're going to be able to devote their time to one specific area rather than jumping from the 1st district to the 6th district to the 3rd district. They'll have a concentrated area, and I've heard nothing but excitement about this, and the men are looking forward to it, so thank you very much.
We will also have available to the councilmen, we're doing like journals for each district, so if you want to see what we're doing in your district, you're always welcome to come look at that journal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, folks, thank you. Next department head will be Mr. Jim Callahan, Inspection Department.
Good morning. I think you're all familiar with the fact that we're basically funded by rental registration fees. The only big difference that, or only difference that we are requesting in this year's budget compared to last year is that we would like to replace our part-time code inspector with a full-time code inspector to give better service to the community.
How many inspectors do you have, Jim?
We have one for each district, code.
Mr. Callahan, Didn't the mayor change some positions in the code enforcement recently?
Pardon me?
Didn't the mayor make some changes in the code enforcement recently?
I'm sorry, still didn't hear you, Councilman.
Didn't the mayor make some changes in code enforcement recently?
The new time person, you mean?
I don't know. I don't work in the department. That's my question to you as a department head.
Okay,
as to
we
whether or
have
not some
6
changes
inspectors,
made.
1 for each district.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that the changes that he made in the office? Because
The
he
change is-
addressed it to me as though he made some changes there. So I'm not totally sure as to what the changes were.
Right now, we have 5 full-time inspectors and 1 part-time inspector. Okay, code enforcement. And we'd like to replace the part-time inspector with a full-time inspector, so we have someone on the street 5 times a day, giving the community better service.
They're doing a hell of a job, I'll tell you that.
Thank you. It gets overwhelming, but we feel great at the end of the day.
Any other?
On these
other
rental
questions?
fees, Jim,
You know, that's a good question. I just gave Chris a document that showed. We're having a problem with our program, to give you an exact total to date, but for 2012, we have 9,626 rental units in the city of Hammond.
How many again?
9,626.
And those are registered properties,
Correct.
correct?
You're probably looking at close to 11 if we had every rental unit registered.
is that including like a Renaissance?
That includes everything, yes.
Have you had any problems with them complaining about the price being too high with so many units?
Yeah. We have problems with a lot of them over a lot of different issues. But yes,
That even goes with Tanglewood and Douglas Point. They all complain about that. Addressed that years ago. It ain't not, what can you do?
Has the health department been called in there?
no, they're independent. They're working for Lake County right now. We contact them during certain situations, and that they have authority of, for example, mold. That's something the health department would address and not the or code enforcement.
You know, all I'm saying is for when that guy came before the council is people go to garage sales and they buy furniture and stuff and they put it in their house and then there's eggs in there from bed bugs and they grow in there. It's nothing like, I would imagine, that Renaissance brought them in. I mean, it probably started in somebody's apartment and then flourished and went out, you know.
I've myself never seen a bed bug that I'm aware of. A lot of fleas, roaches. We try to handle everything in-house because I think we're very well trained. But this is an example of Chris Cantar. I bother Chris Cantar numerous times a day, wanting to see where the line is drawn, where we can take the responsibility or the actions compared to the health department. We just had one Friday. And we're very cautious on what we can do and cannot do. So that would be a decision I would run by Chris Cantar, and then she would say, we'll take responsibility in the actions or contact the health department.
Jim, do you feel 4 people is enough for the districts? What if one leaves or gets sick or something? I know they do a big job, and I do appreciate what they do because it gives a
Thank you.
reflection to the job that I have on the outside. You feel you need someone else? I know you can't get enough, but you have something happens, somebody gets sick or whatever, to take the place of that district because there's so much work that needs to be done.
All right. See, once we're aware of a situation, especially an unsafe situation, there's a responsibility that comes back to the city. We can't turn our head and walk away. We have to make a decision, and again, we'll bother Chris Cantar. You know, what can we do here? What can we not do here without crossing that line? I probably bother Chris more than any department head in the city. But yeah, it's a different world out there today. I think we all know that, and we're trying to make a difference. And we've actually cross-trained all of our inspectors. We have a great unit right now.
You're doing a good job. The cancer's just spread for so long, and you guys are trying to catch up. You're doing a great job.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jim, real quick, it's more of a comment. You know, I've been educated in the last 2 years on what it takes when a house becomes vacant, goes into foreclosure. You got realtors, you got banks, you got our court system, which admittedly could move a little quicker. And I try to educate the residents that you have to be patient. The house is vacant, it's going to take a while to find out what we do with it. In many cases, sometimes contractors rehab, and you know, the whole process has been educational to me. So I try to pass it on to people in the neighborhood.
You know, it's funny because I know once I took over demolitions, or before I took over demolitions, or right after, we never had a call about, you know, I've had this house boarded up next to me for 5 years. What are you going to do with it? And once we start going after these properties because of the effect they have on a neighborhood, we started getting calls. And I get emails from certain council people about a property that's been boarded up for 3 days or a week and they want it down. Well, you know, we really don't like knocking property down. We like to give the owner every opportunity to fix the property up and keep it on the tax roll. But ultimately, that's the owner's decision on whether they're willing to invest that much money in a property or not.
How many demos have you done so far this year?
Oh, geez, I'm not sure. We've been averaging close to 100 a year. The same way with the cut-ups, close to 100 a year.
All right, any other questions pertaining to the budget?
Mr. President, if I could please, I just want to thank Jim and his department for the outstanding job that you guys do. I wish there was a way we could give you another inspector in each district. The level of communication between your inspectors and me, because I do send a lot of emails about things that are going on around the city, and I just want to say thank you for the professionalism and the dedication that you and your department have to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't think the mayor would expect anything less.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Next, we'll have Marty Wiglos and Rachel Montez, Sanitation District. And for your colleagues, that's under Ordinance 1340, the budget.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning. Morning.
Anybody have any questions for the Sanitation Department?
Good morning, Mr. President.
Councilwoman Vanez?
This is quite an extensive budget. In looking through it, and Rachel, I have had a conversation with you about this and some of the other council people. When we get our packets from you for your sanitation meetings, they're always in excess of 100 pages. 100 pages times the 9 of us and whoever else that you have to distribute that to. I know there is an awful lot of paper generated out of your office. Do you think that there is a way that your department would be able to better maximize the technology available to us?
Yes, what you're speaking about is our operations and maintenance budget. That's where those come from, so it's not the sewer or the debt budgets. But after talking with you, I figured we'll just ask everybody to digitalize it, turn it in as digital, and then we can compile it into one CD as you suggested.
Wonderful,
It
wonderful.
may take a couple months to get everybody.
No, I
on the same page.
understand, yeah. It's just a lot of paper, a lot of toner, a lot of time.
Right.
And I just thought that might be a way to, snip an edge anyway. Thank you.
Mr. Weigel, are you back with the city of Hammond?
Yes, Councilman, I am.
And what's your capacity?
Chief of Staff to the Sanitary District.
You asked that question.
What's your salary?
$79,000,
When did that become effective?
July 1st.
That is through our operations and maintenance budget for the sanitary district, not these budgets. These are the sewer maintenance and debt budgets. Those budgets are approved through our board. But that became effective, it was in our 2013 budget that was passed or revised in May, I believe, or June, and that position was added to the budget.
Is there a job description for chief of staff?
I don't have it with me. That was the district manager that probably has that. He's
Is
not.
there one?
Is there one? I would assume that there would be. I can't answer for the
Get a
district
copy
manager.
of that then?
I can ask him for it. He is out ill, so I'm not sure.
Right now, you're saying you don't know if there is one or not, but you're sure, so.
I'm not sure if there is, but I can ask the district manager. He is out ill, so he hasn't been present at the district, but I'll get it to you as soon as we can.
Mr. Weigel, what's your responsibility? Wiegels, I'm sorry, Wiegels.
Actually, it's Wilgus. Councilman.
Pronounce that again for me.
Wilgus.
Wilgus.
There you go.
Mr. Wilgus, can you please give me your responsibilities?
Sure. I see the day-to-day operations of the district. Dr. Unger became ill a few weeks ago. He's in the hospital. And so my responsibilities have increased since he has been unable to be at the district. But basically, the day-to-day operations of the district, working with Rachel, working with our employees, and the business side of the district. That's what I do.
Any other questions for these folks? Okay, folks, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next department head will be Police Chief Brian Miller.
Good morning, Council.
Morning.
Morning.
Questions?
So, Chief, is your whole department just getting a 1% raise as well?
There was a raise amount put in the budget. From what I understand, that's a filler amount. The negotiations, our contract negotiations have not been concluded. So at this point, yes, that's the temporary number that was put in there. It may change with negotiations.
But not for the next fiscal year. You're negotiating for the ongoing years beyond 2014, right?
Now, the next fiscal year, which is 2014, should be determined by a labor agreement, okay? That labor agreement has not been reached yet. Since a labor agreement hasn't been reached yet, we don't know what the raise is going to be. As such, the 1% has been submitted for police department employees, as it is for the rest of the Silver City budget, so that we have a baseline.
Well, my recommendation is that they get a 3% raise, but of course, I'm not the executor. But certainly, Chief, you do an awesome job.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Councilman.
I really appreciate what you do.
Any other questions for Chief Miller?
Mr. President?
Councilman Hinojosa.
Chief, what are the numbers of the manpower in the police department 2013 to 2014?
We're hoping, our Councilman, our sworn strength is 211. We are not at that right now. I believe we're at 209. We are going through an open hiring process, actually starting this week, actually today. We're doing the written test and the physical agility, and that's open to all candidates. You don't have to be a previous academy graduate. we're hoping with that, we'll establish a list early in the year 2014 to fill any vacancies that come up. We believe we're going to lose 4 or 5 officers due to, we have 1 or 2 leaving the department for railroad jobs, and then we also have a couple that are retiring next year. So we're going to try to keep it up at all times up to full strength, which is 211. That's my goal.
Chief, did they do the buyout?
No, sir, we were not allowed to have a buyout. Number one, because we're contract employees, and the other, because we were going to fill their positions. If the buyout, I understand, only would take place if the person was not going to be replaced. And since we're in a hiring phase, they said we were not eligible for the buyout.
Interesting.
Chief, how many new officers have we gotten through this year?
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't
How many new
hear.
officers have we gotten this year?
I just hired 5 recently, and they were emergency hires, Councilman. That meant that the person had to be an academy graduate prior to coming in and applying to us. They were all current police officers with the exception of 1 who just had completed the academy. We received 2 from East Chicago, 1 from the city of Gary, 1 from Munster, and I'm trying to think what the, well, and then the last one was, like I said, an academy graduate. He had not been a police officer at another department.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yes.
I would like to echo Councilman Higgs' sentiments that I do wish we would be able to give more than the 1% raise. You and your department do an absolutely awesome job.
Thank you.
You are always accessible to the community at large, not just the council people. If a resident calls you, you're there to speak to them. And that speaks to the dedication of you and your men and women to the city that we call home.
Thank
so
you,
thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I think I have a wonderful police department.
Yes,
I
you
could
do.
not ask for 270 better employees.
Yes, you do. Thank you.
Mr. President, what, Chief Brian Miller, what is the starting salary for a police officer that comes in?
In the last round of hirings, we hired them at a higher rate than a probationary officer. Since most of those officers had 3 years of experience or more, they came in at the rate of a first-class patrolman, and I believe that's about $55,000. The starting pay, I don't have it right in front of me. That's for first class. Do you know what a probationary would be? 42? It would be 42,000 for just a starting police officer with no previous experience, sir.
Any other questions for Chief Miller? Thank you, Chief Miller.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next department head will be the Fire Chief, Jeff Smith. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, first class.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning, Chief.
Any questions for Fire Chief Jeff Smith?
I'm looking for it here. Yes, Chief. Oh, who's responsible for the water hydrant rental?
Bob?
Okay. Then when you come up, I'll
We just open them
Okay. Alrighty.
and close them. The only thing that really changed in our budget this year is that our maintenance guy went to the Public Works Department. So it was about a $34,000 salary that went over there. And besides the 1%, that's all that's changed.
Any other questions for the Fire Chief?
Chief Smith.
Yes.
Once again, I just want to thank you and your department for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it?
Thank you, Chief. Okay, that concludes with the sign up. Is there any department heads here that haven't signed up, that haven't spoken yet? Approach the podium and give your name and your department.
Good morning. Chris Campbell, Information Technology.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I guess my question would be as to, I guess you put all the information in computer systems, or update the systems.
Well, I don't technically put all the information in there, but I make sure that it stays there and that everybody can access it.
What's your annual salary?
That's approximately 73,000.
So you actually, in the course of the day, run from office to office trying to make sure everything's working properly?
Office to office, building to building.
I don't think that's enough.
Thank you.
I already know what that entails, a headache.
You know, Chris, recently we had new phones installed in the building. Do you have anything to do with that? Is that a separate general fund?
That was part of my department. Yeah.
Okay, I understand that they're okay. There's been some rerouting glitches that happens, but otherwise I haven't heard from anybody that's a big problem. You have to do certain things to hold people that you didn't have to do before. Is that, I don't know, my question is, you were accounting for that? You saw that coming? I mean, is that accounted for?
We have a new system, and as things change, with technology changes, the way you do things change. The old system was put in 1985. So this system is obviously a huge leap forward for us. What you're talking about, putting people on hold, is we don't put them on hold anymore. We now park the call.
Okay.
And to take a call out of park, you have to hit that park button and then connect to the call. Before, it was just you just pressed a line. But also before, if someone was on a line and someone from the outside called, you'd get a busy signal. We no longer get busy signals. You will not call the city of Hammond to get a busy signal anymore.
Well, that's good.
Any other questions for Mr. Campbell?
Chris, when you call now, if no one picks up, do you get a voice that gives a general directory, or?
Each department is formatted slightly different. The clerk's office, for example, they have a number of calls that they get throughout the day, and if everyone's on the phone, they'll get a message that says, all our attendants are busy, please wait. And if an office is closed, they have the ability to put the phones in night mode. That will basically say, our office is closed, here's our hours, please call back during business hours.
I know that, coincidentally or not, whenever I'm in the council office, it seems like they get calls not for the council, and they have to redirect them. Just wondered.
That is actually a huge problem with many departments, and we've been working with various departments to help clean that up. Now, if you call the clerk's office main number or the court's main number, you'll actually be routed through an auto attendant that will help you filter to the right department so that the clerk's office isn't answering questions about, animal licenses.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction because people would call me and say, I can't get through to anybody over there, and this and that, or they wind up in animal control when they're looking for the water department. I mean, it's just, it's a complex system. Yeah, I mean, I understand. So, step in the right direction.
What should be done is one general line, and being you able to, once you call that general line, press a button and go to the department.
That's a very good point, and we are going to start advertising 6300 again. 853-6300 is going to be the main number that we're going to start advertising. We're actually charged for every line that we put in the phone book. So we'd like to start eliminating those lines in the phone book and just start advertising one number. You hit the audio attendant, you listen to the prompts, and you will go to where you need to go. That's going to help the employees, and that's going to help the citizens.
Any other questions for Mr. Campbell? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the only one out there that hasn't spoke yet is Mr. McLaughlin from the mayor's office.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody have any questions for Mark as far as the mayor's budget? Any questions? you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else out there who hasn't spoken yet that's a department head and didn't sign in? All right, well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and we'll see you all Monday night at the council meeting.